Welcome to the Teresa Harding Podcast, where you will learn from one of the top leaders in the network marketing industry. Teresa Harding has grown her team to over millions of people. She's grown online and she's grown offline, and now she's ready to show you the secrets. So get ready to change the way you think. She truly cares about the success of her team and the people that she teaches. So get ready to learn the tips, tricks, and secrets that will allow you to grow a successful business in the 21st century.
I'm Teresa Harding, and this is the Teresa Harding Podcast. This podcast is for people who know that this industry is not about the network marketer anymore. It's about the people we serve and the change we can make in other people's lives. It's about the entrepreneur inside of each of us who's trying to find our voice. It's for the people who want to change the world and are looking for the most powerful way to make that happen. Today, I want to share with you the 6 most powerful lessons that we learned from one of the masters, one of the fathers of marketing. And, they didn't have online marketing back then. His name is Claude C. Hopkins. He is amazing. And what's interesting is he started a lot of the beliefs in some of the marketing that now those principles have proven true over and over again. And he actually instigated so many of the things that we do today. He was brilliant. So he was truly one of the great advertising pioneers. He believed that advertising existed only to sell something and should be measured and justified only by results. If it didn't produce the results, then there was no proof that it actually worked. And I love that, because the reality is sometimes in our businesses, we say, oh, this works or that works, but we can't really quantify it. We're not tracking it. We're not making sure that it really is something that makes a difference, that we actually get results from. And so he worked on measurable results. He worked for some of the most famous companies, and he would advertise for them, like the Bissell Carpet Company, Swift and Company, which was huge back then. In 1907, at the age of 41, Hopkins was hired by Albert Lasker, who was the owner of Lord and Thomas Advertising. It was a salary of $185,000 a year. You guys, that was huge then. And Hopkins always insisted that copywriters should research their clients' products and find out everything they could about them and produce a reason why copy. That's what he calls it, a reason-why. So that basically you would have a way to answer the questions, to give solutions to the people, because he believed that a good product and even, the atmosphere or the reputation around it was often its own best salesperson. So he was a great believer in sampling, letting people try things out. And by the way, he was actually the first one who is credited with getting people to start brushing their teeth more because of his advertising. So I want to share with you 6 business lessons from Claude C. Hopkins and his scientific research, which is basically his clinical research. Okay, the first one was to find the inner remarkability of the product or the thing that you are trying to sell. I'll give you an example of one that he used. So the Quaker Oats Company hired him. They were struggling to sell just a couple of their products. One of them was puffed rice, and every expert had advised H.P. Crowell, who was the owner of that company, every expert had advised him to drop the products from his catalog because selling them was not going to work. Well, Crowell finally hired Claude Hopkins. And Hopkins did a detailed research on the product because that's what he believed in. So he was looking for something remarkable about that product. And honestly, sometimes the remarkability comes from finding out how the product is made or what ingredients are in the product. He was looking for something out of the ordinary, something unusual, something interesting and worthy of attention by the people who might buy that product. And during his research, he studied the process of making the puffed grains. He saw how every food cell was exploded, resulting in multiplication of the grains to 8 times their normal size. He saw that basically every atom was made available for consumption. He was seriously shocked. In fact, he said he was astonished to see the grains being shot from the guns while making puffed grains. And then that was kind of the light bulb that went on inside his head. That was the remarkability, that it was shot from a, quote, gun. And he coined the phrase, food shot from the gun. He actually even said food shot from the gun of peace. He did that, I'm sure, to make sure that it was a positive association. He was sure that that phrase would get attention, and it absolutely worked. So the second thing that he talks about is the second business lesson that I want you to learn from what Claude Hopkins taught was about personalities. He felt like the personality was super important and that it was important to target hope, not fear. Because a lot of times we see today in a lot of advertisements, people are targeting the fear. So for example, if you don't use this product, you might turn out like this, which can be a marketing technique that can work, but he found that targeting hope worked better than targeting fear. So he worked for Charles Pierce, who was a sales manager at Palmolive. He had a toilet soap product, and this was, back in the day when they would go door to door, the salesmen. It was made up of palm and olive oils, and every expert was suggesting to him that the product did not have any advertising potential. They told him that he should shelve the idea, that it wasn't a good idea. So he ended up talking to Hopkins for a solution. Claude Hopkins did a bit of competitive research, and every single manufacturer was promoting their soap by targeting the fear psychology, that they would get wrinkles, that they would smell funny, that they would have body odor, it would change their skin. And so there were tons of old-fashioned advertisements that you can find that talked about that. But what Claude Hopkins did, because he believed that hope was better than fear, in his advertising, he had refrained from using fear elements in his advertising. He did research again and he targeted the user segment for the new bathing soap. So from research, he found out that one of the major, quote, hope factors of his target was beauty. Like his target group, his target audience, a big thing was beauty. And at that time, nobody was really recognizing the strength of beauty appeal. Nowadays, it seems like, obvious. Everybody targets beauty. They know that the women want to be beautiful, men want to be beautiful. But you know what? At that time, that was not a thing. And so he's kind of the first one who started that. He also saw that women were finding ways to improve their skin complexion because that mattered to them. So Hopkins came across information that showed that talked about how Cleopatra used palm and olive oils. And so he used this opportunity to tap into this beauty emotion. And he made a whole bunch of ads for them around Cleopatra and palm and olive oils and the secrets of beauty and all this stuff. And it absolutely went crazy. Third lesson is to live with your customers. Claude Hopkins was asked to find a way to promote Palmolive shaving cream. And he saw that all the users of the shaving cream were loyal to certain brands and the ones that they'd been using for years and years, and they weren't really willing to try any new products. And so he noticed that Palmolive shaving cream couldn't really claim any exceptional benefits. It wasn't really that much different than any other brand. And so he decided that without any new value proposition, it would be tough to promote the new product. And so the best way he could think of to find a new value proposition, a new way to put value on this product, was to go and observe the users. He wanted to see what the users were doing. So he did a detailed research of the behavior of people who were using shaving cream, and he watched what they were doing. His observation showed him that men want a lot of lather. They wanted the lather to be big, abundant. They wanted it to be enduring lather and quick action. They didn't have to work that hard to get the lather to come up. So his design, this whole thing he designed to observe the user, ended up showing him what he could do to create the want from the consumer. So he did ads that showed how the Palmolive shaving cream could moisten the beard within 1 minute. This is some of the things that the ad said, it had potential to quicken the cutting action, and it was better than other brands. And the chemists also showed that Palmolive shaving cream maintained its creaminess for 10 minutes on the face. And now the challenge was, how do we communicate those benefits to the customer as soon as they open the shaving cream can? How do we make the difference visible to these users? Because the easier it is for the individuals to see the benefits, the more likely they are to adopt it. We have to tempt them to use the product. And the solution he came up with was it was already provided by the user research that it was thick lather, and he knew that the users liked that. So he asked the chemists to multiply the lather to 250 times. So it was way better than any other brand. And people subconsciously associated the thickness of the lather with the product quality, which other brands had failed to make note of in their advertising. So now he was able to identify something in this product that made it feel to the users like it was way, way better. And so they, like one of the ads says, 5 new joys await you in Palmolive shaving cream. And number 1 was it multiplies itself in lather 250 times. And so then, of course, it went crazy. And in one of the ads, they offer 10 shaves for free. So what do you think happened as soon as they used those samples? As soon as they used the samples and they saw the lather getting big like that, well, guess what? That became huge. So lesson number 4, the 4th powerful business lesson that he taught or learned and has solidified in the marketing industry is to target the weak spot in a consumer's behavior and simplify and reward that. Because people know, we know our weaknesses. So here's one of the ones that he did. Van Camp approached Hopkins to sell factory-baked pork and beans. We all are familiar with Van Camp pork and beans. Hopkins went to the market and looked at other competing brands. He did his research just like he did every time. Every brand was shouting that they were the best brand, and he couldn't really find anything that was different, anything that would differentiate Van Camp from anyone else. So he looked at Van Camp's technicalities, and it was really similar to any other competitor product. He had to find a way to sell the Van Camp product among those brands. And so he's trying to figure out, okay, what is the best way to find a solution? He did user research again because he knew that was something that was powerful. He proceeded to conduct research. He came across a crazy revelation that shocked him. 94% of housewives baked their own pork and beans. Every brand was competing for the remaining 6% of consumers. So people were not at all buying the factory-baked pork and beans. So Hopkins realized that he needed to not compete against the competitors' brands. He wanted to fight against the ingrained behavior. He had to find a way to change the consumer's habit. So how did he want to proceed? He identified a weak spot in the existing behavior. That was that they had to do all this hard work to create this product for their family. So as he did research, he observed that women required 16 hours to bake beans at home. And a lot of times the baked beans ended up being indigestible. And he saw that the housewives didn't have a good quality of water, the high temperature ovens to bake the good quality beans. There were a lot of things that made it hard to do it from home. So he began the campaign targeting the women's weak spot, which was comparing home-baked and factory-baked beans. So he also showed them how Van Camp selected the beans, got the best beans, the type of water they used, how it was baked in a steam oven at 245 degrees Celsius. He offered a free sample for taste tests when people were approaching the company. He did all of these things. He was able to simplify the process, to make people come forward and try the product. It was important to communicate that it was way easier to use the product without any training. And so he had several ads. Let us cook for you. We know how. Van Camp Packing Company, can do this for you. And then the reward was, how does it feel? How does it feel when someone does it for you? You don't have to do it. The reward is the reason why people will repeat your behavior that you're trying to get them to do. A pleasant experience is a reward. A woman wants to serve awesome food when her husband comes back home after a day of hard work. And this, of course, is in the 1930s, so a lot of women didn't work back then. She would feel excited when her husband was happy with the food. She felt unhappy whenever the beans were indigestible. So then Hal Hopkins didn't stop there. He started working on the men. He noticed that men at their noonday lunch in the downtown offices or whatever would often order factory-baked pork and beans. So it was obvious that the men liked them. So Hopkins arranged his agents to supply Van Camp's pork and beans to all the restaurants and lunch encounters at the workplaces. He made sure that Van Camp's products were served in thousands of places. And he finally announced the fact to women that many men were going every day to places where Van Camps were served. So he helped the women to think and feel that they were already going to be giving them something that the men liked. And so there were several different areas that he helped solve problems for the different people. So think about these things as you are marketing your product. The 5th business lesson from him is to help your customers to help themselves. You don't sell, you offer a service. So he may be the first one that was creating like how to build an offer. You're offering a service. You're not selling a product. So it's not about us, it's about them. And Dale, this is a quote from Dale Carnegie. The only way I can get you to do anything is by giving you what you want. And that's what Claude knew how to do. The 6th business lesson was consumers buy, humans live. So care about them. Because when you hear that, do you want to be a consumer or do you want to be a human? You want to be a human. You want to live. You don't want to just buy. So one time, Claude Hopkins was requested to help in promoting the Schlitz beer brand. But Schlitz beer was, at that time, it was in 5th place. And it was just like every other beer on the market. Every brewer was shouting, oh, ours is pure. And everybody made a big deal about their pure beer. And Schlitz was shouting, ours is purer than other brands. And Hopkins knew that the product could not be promoted based on purer because everybody was saying that. He had to find something that set it apart. So what did he do? You can imagine. He went and started doing research on the product, and guess what he did? He found out all the processes they went through to create beer. I'll give you some examples because he was astonished that he found that the beer was, he would go to where it went through the pipes. He was excited and honestly pleasantly surprised to know how the rooms were filled with filtered air so that the beer could be cooled in purity. He saw how great filters filled with white wood pulp were used in purification of the beer. He saw how the employees cleaned every pump and pipe twice a day to avoid contamination. He saw how every bottle was cleaned 4 times in the machinery, how they went 4,000 feet deep inside for pure water, how beer was aged for 6 months before it went out to the market, how they developed the original mother yeast cell by conducting 1,100 experiments to bring out the utmost flavor. These are all things that were true. But to people who are in the industry, it may seem boring. He made that exciting, used that in the advertising, and made it feel like this beer was totally better and different than everyone else, even though every other beer was doing the same thing. But he identified that, verbalized it, put it in the ads, made sure people knew about it. And all of a sudden, Schlitz beer started becoming the number one, that people felt like it was the most pure, even though it really wasn't that much differentiated from another beer. So anyways, those are 6 powerful lessons. I'm grateful for him. I know that I've learned from him from my studies in marketing, and I know that a lot of my mentors and the gurus in the industry today learned some powerful lessons from Claude Hopkins. And I'm grateful for the stepping stones that he created so that we have what we have today. So I just want to end by telling you guys, I want to read you review that I got, and it really was awesome. And it's somebody who's not even in my company. They heard my podcast, so I wanted to give a shout out to you. It's by Relativity67. So thank you so much for giving this review. It says, great new podcast on how to grow your MLM with integrity. Found this podcast from following Teresa Harding on Instagram and listened to most of them through Libsyn before they had uploaded to iTunes. I was so interested in what Teresa had to say, and 2 exclamation points, which I already like you because I use a ton of exclamation points. I am not in the same company as Teresa, but know her success and respect in the industry and was eager to learn actionable tips from her in growing a huge business. Teresa speaks from the heart and does not underplay the hustle, but gives great tips and advice on how to grow your business online and with integrity. She talks about everything from mindset to finding the right coach and is humble in admitting the mistakes she made so we don't have to make the same ones. I'm so excited about this podcast and excited to listen every week now going forward. Relativity67, thank you. You are awesome. That was an awesome 5-star review. I totally appreciate that. And the thing that meant the most to me was that you talked about how I do this in integrity, because that's what matters to me the most. I want to make sure that I add value, but that it's always with integrity. So thank you. I appreciate that. Wanted to give you a shout out for that. All right. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you in the next podcast.